On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Welcome back, everyone. As you know, with Import Export, we'll always try to bring you industry voices right across Australia and who have got direct access and feedback from the market and the key players and stakeholders. So on today's show, we've got Paul Zalai, who looks after the Australian Peak Shippers Association and also looks after FTA as well. So Paul, thanks so much for joining us, mate. It's been a great pleasure to get you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. It's great to be here.
Great. So the Australian Peak Shippers Association, I know that, as the name suggests, all the big players when it comes to volume of cargo, you represent them through your role. Can you tell us a bit more about APSA and how that works throughout the sector and the role it plays there?
Sure. So the Australian Peak Shippers Association, it's a not-for-profit industry association with a board with a lot of the major exporters on there. They've got about 35 business members in total, as well as supporting other industry associations, including the Australian Meat Industry Council, the Australian Horticulture Export Importer Association, Wool Exporters, and the Australian Cotton Shippers Association. So between the group, they collectively, in a good year, weather permitting, export approximately about 600,000 TEUs. We provide the support secretariat for the association via Freight and Trade Alliance.
Yep.
So FTA was founded 8 years ago to be holistic across the supply chain, and since that time we've grown to be representative of about 380 businesses, primarily with an import focus, representing major importers and freight forwarders and customs brokers. Just very quickly on APSA as well, it's actually designated by the Minister for Infrastructure to represent both importers and exporters under Part 10 of the Competition and Consumer Act. Right. So we engage with shipping lines when they've got vessel sharing arrangements to make sure that they can comply with the Competition and Consumer Act.
Great. I think that's, it's a really important role that plays because, as we've heard over the last couple of months, and even before COVID-19 really sort of had an impact, there was a lot of industry, concerns around the port charges and all the other infrastructure fees that were creeping in. And I know that, I read a number of your articles, and you're always a strong voice and advocate for the shippers around there. How has the COVID-19 impacted those peak shippers, or just shippers in general, especially importers and exporters?
You've got me onto one of my favourite topics of the infrastructure surcharge, and I might need longer than the allocated time to do that justice. But look, in summary, our advocacy around that is stevedores charge a fee upwards of $80, $90, $120 at containerised ports around the country. We need the stevedores, we need them healthy, we need them to be profitable, but we're saying that they need to recover their costs off their commercial client, being the shipping line, rather than imposing a fee on a third party that has no option but to pay it. And we're actively working with the state governments. Minister Constance, the New South Wales Minister now, has come out with some quite strong messaging, and similar in Victoria, Queensland, and even WA. So hopefully we get a bit of traction there to just sort of correct the commercial balance there.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to ask you as well is, based on not just these surcharges, what else could the government, or should the governments, not just state and federal, what else can they be doing to help importers and exporters through the current crisis and even longer term in the future, Paul? What are your thoughts there?
There's a whole range of things that they've already started, and things that are sort of a work in progress. Everyone in Australian commerce would be familiar with now is the cash flow boost, and also the JobKeeper. It has its limitations, is for the service providers, the customs brokers and the freight forwarders, who outlay huge sums of money on behalf of importers in particular and exporters on particularly duty, GST, import processing charges, freight charges, overseas terminal charges and the like, and they recoup that back generally on a disbursement basis. So we've written to the ATO Commissioner to get a determination there to basically get an exemption so that we can meet the intent of the policy there to support SMEs in the service provider sector. Similarly with the JobKeeper scheme, you've got to demonstrate a 30% reduction from the previous year, and a lot of forwarders now are using charters and remaining freighters, but the prices have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Again, which is understandable. So a couple of things that we're a work in progress there. We're working with our government for the deferral of duty, GST and import processing charges. Immediately, the ATO have been fantastic.
Great.
And they've really worked very closely to improve the deferral of GST scheme. So allows importers to very quickly get onto a monthly scheme. And we've got a few days left before the end of April, so I would encourage importers to have a look at that scheme for this quarter, which will give them some instant relief. That scheme used to take up to 30 days to get a registration, but the ATO have very much streamlined operations now and are turning around applications within 3 or 4 days. Air cargo funding, where there was big announcements there from the Trade Minister. $110 million supporting the agriculture sector and also seafood. Meat exporters are benefiting it as well. So that's a work in progress, and we'll be communicating more on that in the coming weeks. Sort of the next level of interest, and this is still a bit of a work in progress for us, is the on the export side of things. We've got obviously with the reduction of imports, we've got less vessel sailings, and we've got less equipment too, less containers going to be made available for exporters, and we're struggling to get enough food quality boxes. So if any of your listeners are involved in developing liners for containers or anything innovative like that, now could be the time to make yourself known, because we're going to need to be clever and innovative to keep what is looking to be a pretty good export season with the agriculture sector, to keep cargo moving.
Yeah, quite right, Paul. I think many people overlook that the importance of the repositioning that shipping lines do with all those food quality or reefers or NORs, all those things that are typically taken for granted in many ways. But look, I think, Paul, it's a really powerful and important role that you're playing to really be the voice to government and really help them to generate or increase awareness of what the struggles are that importers and exporters are going through. And now I think there's another challenge that I've heard about over the last couple of weeks is the storage part. People's because you can't get end product out to retail, capacity of storage has become an issue where companies. This is just hearsay, but I've heard a lot of people saying the factories are filling up, warehouses are filling up very quickly. Are you hearing the same sort of thing as well?
Look, we are, and I suppose we've got the experience from the GFC, similar issues, and that was a big factor then. And I think we've been a bit more proactive this time. Particularly been working closely with New South Wales and Victorian Transport for New South Wales and Freight Victoria, who have been fantastic and have really sort of taken the lead on this and looking at all kinds of sites.
Great point. I wanted to ask you about detention demurrage. What's happening there? Are there any graces that the carriers or importers, if they can't obviously get their operations in a typical turnaround time, as we all experiencing now?
Look, we've made contact with all the major shipping lines, and look, again, understandably, they don't want to make any blanket decision or rulings. This has been that, they will look at situations on a case-by-case basis. We've had a couple of scenarios now where we've supported members, and the shipping lines have come to the party, particularly around the disruption at Hutchison ports in Port Botany, where they some staff, there was some dispute over a COVID situation there, and the terminal was closed for a week. So we had some serious issues there with stranded containers, but the shipping lines were very accommodating and understanding of the unique situation. So look, we're hopeful that, as you said at the beginning, the need for cooperation will continue, but so far so good.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul, for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure to have you on, and really, again, look forward to all your contribution to being that voice of those peak shippers to government and to industry, and to really help navigate all of us through this crisis. So thanks, mate. Really appreciate you joining, and look forward to chatting again very soon.
Thanks again, Lawrence.